Hi, this is Ed back again with another supporter video for everybody on Patreon, Subscribestar, and of course the Hive blockchain. As we get into something unusual regarding a 4chan post, if you heard about that radio signal coming out of Ganymede there, as well as a new research paper, at least published in November a couple of months ago, which lists YouTubers. So we're going to get into that in a moment. Before I do, I just want to go through a couple of memes or things to lighten up the mood. Of course, there's a lot of things going on in the world. I am going to be moving away from politics. I have been covering a bit of that, of course, because of the 2020 election. I think that things are just so chaotic. Who knows what's going to happen? Let's just have a look at the world encapsulated in a picture. This is pretty much it at the moment. Look at it. I mean, that's what they say is a plug in the wall. Everything is kind of really chaotic. Here's something a little bit more humorous. Someone posted this on Twitter. So I ordered a baby Yoda from China. What could go wrong? It's the baby Yoda that they actually got. A bit of laughter last night when I actually seen that myself. Here's something I came across in regarding chess.com. I was watching their, well, I was going to start to watch it. I just actually added it to my watch list. So I haven't seen it yet. It was the 2021 Puzzle Battle World Championships. Now, Grandmaster Ashley is well known within the chess community, as you can see here on the right. When I seen that in their picture, I said, wow, they look like their cranium is at least, is like I'd say about like a quarter larger than normal people. I actually drew these lines to measure it against Daniel Rausch there. I can't remember how to say his last name. He is, one of the, basically the head of chess.com, and Grandmaster Ashley has been playing for a long time. If you're familiar with chess, I'm not a very good chess player, but I have been following it for a while. Now, in regarding this, look how large his head is in comparison to Danny here. He has probably a normal head. Look at the size of it. When I seen that, it looked like he came off a spacecraft. Because when you look at the, the aliens and TV shows and things like that, or at least these enlightened beings that are on the spacecraft, who, by the way, come in all ethnicities, just in case you were wondering, it's not just Nordic aliens. They actually are described as the darker skinned Nordic aliens actually have silver hair. Well, I seen his cranium, and that's a pretty big cranium, which you have to be pretty smart to be a grandmaster. But still, his head actually looks like it has more brain matter in it than the normal person. I mean, look at the size of their head. Is it an optical illusion? Most likely, because people do not have larger craniums. We all have around about the same. There is some differential unless you're talking about the Star Child. When I seen that, it just seemed crazy in comparison to a normal person's head. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that bit of strangeness, considering we're going to talk about some aliens in a moment. All perspectives, of course, whether they are a psyop, whether it's constructed, whether it's real. We'll go through that and make some speculations. The establishment during the Capitol siege. Say the emperor there. I'm too weak, he states. The establishment 5 seconds later. Ultimate power. Here's another classic here. Ending the gold standard in 1971 and printing fiat money to start endless wars and outsource manufacturing. Here's how it started. Here's how it's going. Because that's a photograph of someone at the Capitol and regarding going inside the Capitol. I mean, most of them, if it wasn't peaceful, you could use the mostly peaceful term, I guess. There was some violence. Of course, you've seen the videos now. Of course, there was horrific violence as well. But I would say the crowd that was around the Capitol, I mean, you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of people, an absolute small fraction, that went inside and broke things, okay? Of course, that's Buzz Aldrin. My opinions, Buzz never went to the moon, but there's no doubt about it. Buzz knew mathematics, you could spell and fly fighter jets. I mean, he was, a lot of the people back then could read, write. That's how when I seen this photo, I know the person's purposely dressed up like that, okay? But it just really encapsulates the change. You get Buzz Aldrin on one side, and I don't believe he went to the moon. I think that they've got something over him. You know, a lot of astronauts that didn't play ball ended up in car crashes or burnt or some crazy things happening to them. They become alcoholics. Of course, Buzz Aldrin's publicly, that information is known. He is an alcoholic. He's struggled with alcohol abuse. A lot of people do struggle with that. I'm lucky I haven't had that problem myself, but I don't judge anyone for it. People's reality sometimes is harder than other people's, and they medicate themselves. You know, we're in the mouse utopian experiment. But nonetheless, I thought that was, the famous meme going around is how it started, and then the other headline is how it's going. And that's civilization right there. Not just in the United States. I'm not picking on the United States. Love the United States. I used to live there, as I've stated, and one day might go back. I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but that's how it started and how is it going? Look, he's got like a wooden spear there. Look at him. I mean, yes, and I'm aware that a lot of these are probably staged individuals that were paid to be there and do stuff. Okay. Here's another one. We're sorry, your Amazon smart refrigerator has denied you access to your groceries because you questioned climate change or climate science at dinner last night. Spend $50. Send $50 to Greta Thunberg via the Cash App to have your access restored. It's humorous now, but in 30 years, that's probably what it's going to be about. And if you say, hey, I want to turn off if you can, you would have to be, you'd have to have, skills in order to turn off the microphones and things like that and these smart devices in the future, because it'll be designed for you not to be able to do that. If you turn it off, it probably won't work, okay? But if you could turn it off, there'll be lists of people that are made to say, hey, why did you turn off the microphones in your house? Because they'll be recording your information, using AI, advanced AI, in order to track back and turn that into text in order to search through to see if you say any wrong words. So let's just really get into the clip reel here. Now, just a note, I don't have a lot to say about what's going on. This is what happens when people break down. All lines of communication have disappeared. Even the way that they perceive reality changes. Some people now believe in categorization, objective standards. Others believe in everything is relative. This world. There's not really a lot to say. Okay, at the moment anyway. Let's play the clip reel. All time codes are in the description, of course. Backup Mirror 2, Rumble and 3Speak are also there if you're watching on Patreon or Subscribestar. Because if you're watching on 3Speak, you're watching on 3Speak. So let's just play this video. You can skip ahead to the time code if you wish. I'll be back afterwards. It's about 10 minutes long.
You freaking bitch! You self-absorbed piece of shit!
I'm just a kid.
And your mother should be teaching you better!
She does teach me well.
And my son is without a father because people can't wear goddamn masks!
People are still getting sick and people are still wearing masks. Right now it's a mask.
Seriously? What the fuck is wrong with Lindsey Graham? Just the other day he was saying,
all I can say is count me out. Enough is enough.
And now he's all buddy-buddy with him, flying on Air Force One with the guy. Trump never allows anyone back into his good graces who deny his delusions. I don't even want to know what Lindsey had to do to get back on that plane.
I'd say one initial message is that the fact of being vaccinated does not obviate or remove the need for us to keep up very high levels of compliance with the public health measures. There's a view abroad perhaps that when you get your vaccine that you don't then afterwards need to continue to practice all the measures that we're, and that simply isn't the case. There's no evidence that we have yet, even though we hope we might get it in time, to show that this vaccine will impact beneficially on preventing transmission.
Anyone Biden wins will go through all the Republican voters, and Homeland Security will take their children away. And we'll put them into re-education camps.
Amen.
In these times, which are unique, we need Trump is close to him.
What are we going to do if we don't like you? It doesn't
Go to the White House and throw Molotov cocktails. What's great is that COVID is spiking in all the red states right now, so that's great.
Why do you think so?
Because either those people will come out to vote for Trump, because the red states, or a lot of them are sick and dying.
Can we talk about this? If black folks were doing it, it'd be a different. Even Biden said it. Biden announced his attorney general today. He even came up with this BS. If Black Lives Matter was storming the Capitol, the results would have been far different. Okay. Oh, really? Yeah, you're right. You're right. Y'all right. It'd be way different. I remember all summer, y'all burned down city after city. What did the NBA do? The NBA put Black Lives Matter on a goddamn logo, on the goddamn court, in the goddamn NBA playoffs.
Facts.
They made commercials. They made goddamn service announcements. It was Black Lives Matter everywhere. Every company got in on it.
Yep.
Every company.
You know, when I saw the events at the Capitol last Wednesday, I was more upset than I can ever remember. I think I said so on air. And a lot of people have said to me since, what about 9/11, Stephen? Well, yeah, that is the most horrible day in America's history. But I want to point out, no Americans were cheering for the terrorists back then. No one was making excuses for the terrorists. No one was pretending that they weren't terrorists. Because this attack was far worse than it first looked. The terrorists who stormed the Capitol weren't just a bunch of yahoos fed a steady diet of lies, vape juice, and Monster Energy drink. This was a coordinated and planned attempt to terrorize, if not kill, our nation's elected leaders.
I want to be clear in how I characterize this. This is mostly a protest. It is not, generally speaking, unruly.
I am glad I didn't think that the Trumpsters had it in them. I didn't think the conservatives did. But you know what? You racist socialists can dish it out, but you can't take it. And remember this, Adolf Hitler was a socialist. And that's exactly who you follow. You're nothing but a coward. Seeing you hide underneath your desk, I actually got sexually excited over it. That's how much I loathe you. That's how much I'm glad what they did. And like Nancy Pelosi said, people do what they do. After all, she doesn't care about monuments, and neither do I. And where in the First Amendment does it say that you have to protest peacefully and politely? As long as there's outrage and unrest in our hearts, there's going to be unrest in these streets. I don't give a shit whether you believe me. You're nothing but a cracker. That's all you are, is a racist cracker. You can dish it out. Look, you've got protection. Why don't you tell them to stand down, hypocrite? Did you tell the Capitol Police to stand down? Did you tell them to stand down? Answer the question. No, stand down. He told the police to stand down in Kenosha, Seattle, Portland, Chicago, Boston, New York, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. And you know what? These Trump supporters are going to go to your house. Yep. They're going to go to Pelosi's house. They'll destroy her vineyards. And I will be right there to support them. Don't you say it's enough. No, shut up. Shut up!
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator.
You know, there needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
Enemies of the state.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless.
When they go low, we kick them.
How do you resist the temptation to run up and wring her neck?
The biggest terror threat in this country is white men, most of them radicalized up to the right.
I thought he should have punched him in the face. I said, even if you lost, he insulted your wife.
Yes.
He came down the escalator and called Mexicans rapists and murderers. He said, well, what do you think I should have done? I said, I think you should have punched him in the face and then gotten out of the race. You would have been a hero.
I'd like to punch him in the face. I said if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
Punch some people in the face!
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump, and that's a fact.
Look as his character is stabbed to death.
Where is John Wilkes Booth when you need him?
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
A Missouri state senator is under investigation by the Secret Service after saying she hopes President Trump is assassinated.
I will go and take Trump out tonight.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
That ain't a riot, what we're seeing right now in Minneapolis. They are strictly principled anti-fascists, and they've taken a principled stand to stand against white supremacists and white nationalists wherever they may show up.
I argue to you tonight, all punches are not equal morally.
It says it right in the name, Antifa, anti-fascism, which is what they were there fighting. Listen, there's no organization is perfect. There was some violence.
Any reasonable person would say we shouldn't be destroying other people's property, but these are not reasonable times.
But thank goodness for the looters, man.
And please, show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
I don't care that much about statues.
Shouldn't that be done by a commission or the city council, not a mob in the middle of the night throwing it into the harbor?
People will do what they do.
You're seeing behind me is one of multiple locations that have been burning in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Do not get it twisted and think that, oh, this is something that has never happened before, and then this is so terrible, and where are we, and these savages and all of that. This is how this country was started.
People get mad, and people get sick of it. People are risking COVID to explain to this country that we're fed up.
Most of the major movements in American history have started at the grassroots level and at some point have turned into direct conflict with American government. So remember your history before you judge your present.
Thuggishness is thuggishness wherever it comes from politically, and we should be the first to call it out.
So there you pretty much have it. What do you say about all that? I don't know. I've been talking about division and the problems with breakdown in communication for a while. Same stuff you've seen in the UK, although in the UK the legal system is set up so people are just taken straight to jail pretty much for jokes. So let's have a look at this here. So I don't want to talk too much on this. And regarding Stephen Colbert stating that basically it's as bad as 9/11, I mean, that is, what do you say to that? I mean, it's completely, there's no comparison whatsoever. And you will know what I think of 9/11. It's just no comparison. First of all, one Trump supporter was shot by Capitol Police. Yes, a number of other police officers were injured from heart attacks. One committed suicide. But it wasn't anything like 9/11 or some war zone like Iraq or something like that. But of course, it is what people, all the mainstream news media, and you can see by how things are covered, how crazy it is, the coverage, what happened. But like I said months ago, you needed an event. And I don't know if that was the single event or there's another one in order to solidify movement behind Joe Biden, psychologically. So if you are against Joe Biden, you're equivalent to terrorists that stormed the Capitol. His words, calling them terrorists, which again is this kind of insane way of thinking that is not the equivalent of a terrorist. Okay, the people there. That's nowhere in comparison. But the way it's covered, you can see how insane it is and how much hypocrisy is behind it. I mean, what do you say to stuff like this anymore? Lindsey Graham apparently back in Trump's good books. Who knows if that's even real? At least that one person was stating that. And regarding this video here, the person that's being yelled at, that this woman's yelling at, is probably, I don't know, a 10-year-old girl. A 10-year-old girl standing there. Of course, as you know, before we get into this news from Ganymede and this 4chan post, Donald Trump was removed now from YouTube. At least suspended, so he can't publish any videos. And a warning was given to the White House YouTube channel as well. The White House. After review and in light of concerns about the ongoing political violence, we removed new content uploaded to Donald Trump's channel for violating our policies. It now has one strike that prevents it from uploading for a week. As you know, I'm 2 weeks down myself. Given, well, channel probably won't be around that much longer. Given the ongoing concerns about violence, we were definitely disabling comments on President Trump's channel, as we've done with other channels that found a safety concern in. So everywhere he's been Alex Jones. And this is what I was saying like a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. If Donald Trump didn't do something about big tech was going to crush him. And all of his supporters, and that's what happened. I don't take any, there's no pleasure in saying that I said it. All I have to say is I'm not, a reed in the wind. Everybody was saying that. Everybody was saying you have to do something about big tech. Now, it'd probably be, if we're going to dig a little bit deeper, very hard for Donald Trump to do that. The reason why is big tech is literally intertwined with the US government. The seed money for Google is really the military-industrial complex. That's where they got their maps from. As Julian Assange pointed out, Google Maps was obtained from the military, who gave it for free to Google. Why would they do that? And that is the problem you're seeing. You're seeing an actual... This is a complicated scenario of the machine, the invisible machine, crushing the President of the United States, who's supposed to be at the helm of it. Okay, the military-industrial complex. So nothing's going to ever be done about big tech, I don't think. The only thing that can be done is people move to alternative platforms and drain, entities such as YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all of them, of their power by the user base moving. And we are seeing attempts to do that, although it is a monopolistic world and those attempts have been crushed. Look at Parler for an example. It's up to 23 minutes, so let's get into what I think is interesting. Now, you're probably aware, if you follow the news or whatever, there's been a lot of articles talking about a radio signal found coming from Jupiter's moon. When I seen this, I was like, okay, there's a radio signal. What does that mean? Well, they detect radio signals all the time. It depends if there's a pattern to the radio signals. If you've got a radio signal that had a pattern to it, it would note that it's more than just a signal from some kind of star or something like that, and regarding neutrons and etc. What was unusual about this, apart from the radio signal, which are detected, they're detected and they have been detected for some times. These radio blasts have been detected, so on and so forth. What was interesting about this is a 4chan post. Here's the 4chan post here. So it was published on the 23rd of October 2020. Now this news is coming out here regarding an FM radio signal. Okay, so an FM radio signal detected from the Jupiter moon of Ganymede. Okay, it's a moon of Jupiter there. Now, on the 23rd of October, this post was posted on 4chan. Bear in mind, 4chan is a place which has very sophisticated, the creation of illusions is, you know, the art of the chans and forums and everywhere these days. I wouldn't say it was as people actively creating psyops. It's like part of their culture, really. It's like in Mongolia, you know, less vegetables in the meal and more fat is a product of the Mongolian environment, such as these social ecosystems here. A lot of them, there's a pleasure-orientated and a fun approach to creating illusions and tricking other people with inside the community and beyond. Now, inside their community, there are also sophisticated entities that have built up bases in order to purposely create and manipulate people for the product of creating a psychological operation. And then there's other entities. You know, there's sophisticated, then there's companies, so on and so forth. So it is a chaotic place. I just thought I'd add that disclaimer. Now, the reason why I'm stating that is this post here. If you can't read that on screen, don't worry, because I copied the entire thing and I put it into this so you could easily read it on screen. We're going to read it here since we've got time. We're only up to 26 minutes. If you want to skip ahead and you're not interested in this, of course, just hit the time code in the description, and then we'll go to a other topic of the day, which is basically a list of YouTubers coming out of academia. Got a bit to say about that, because how accurate is that information? We're going to take a look. So let's read through this here. Just a reminder, this coming out the other day regarding radio signals. As I stated, radio signals in general have been picked up for a long time, and I'll cite some information regarding that. Here is what the 4chan post was on October the 26th. If you're reading this, this is my dead man switch. I have fled the country or been murdered. I'm a subcontractor for the CIA that covers NSA's behind, basically, when they F up. I'm effing tired. F this country, according to them. F the people who killed Walter. F you for killing him. There is a damaged space station orbiting Ganymede. It has been abandoned for a very, very long time, as in hundreds of maybe thousands of years. It appears to have been impacted by something with a massive hole, basically through it. It's shaped like a sphere, and inside is a toroid, which is a type of donut-shaped object in mathematics. However, I've done a mock-up of it, so I'll show you that a bit later of what he's talking about. The sphere turns clockwise, and the toroid spins counterclockwise. The entire object is roughly 920 feet in diameter. They have no clue what it is made of, some sort of dark purple metal with a bright green shimmer. They have no idea what its exact purpose was. Maybe the first steps in colonizing the moon, talking about Ganymede there, moon of Jupiter. A probe is in the works and expected to be rushed out sometime in 2021. It emits no radiation, no heat, nor any signs of life. They only know it exists because on June the 6th, 2020, it emitted a strong signal for 6 seconds from Juno. Detected Juno has taken a multitude of pictures. Just cutting in here, Juno is the apparent spacecraft. Well, that's according to the official narrative of the world. Juno is a spacecraft that was sent out in order to measure things, take photos. So the Juno spacecraft, continuing to read here, for people that are listening instead of watching, Juno has taken a multitude of pictures, but they are in a guarded vault that holds the offline server. I know all of this because it was leaked the week it was discovered, and we were ordered to scrub it. Now, a very high-level official who had hands-on access to the server ran his mouth to a 16-year-old girl he was having relations with, and they both died of a heart attack on the same day. I stole access to a computer with the transcript reports of what he told her before it was scrubbed. I was not supposed to see this. My colleague and good friend Walter Ashcroft, who also saw the transcript with me, died this morning when his car hit a power pole driving at 100 miles per hour. I fully expect to be suicided now, so I'm setting up this dead man switch. So I guess this will be the final contribution to the world. I didn't want this. I'm so sorry for involving you that day, Walter. Now everyone will effing know. Good luck. He says killing them, etc. Down there you can see basically the thread to the 4chan or the 4chan archive there. So when you look into it, some interesting things appear. For instance, here is 2 days ago. Obviously this can't be the person he's talking about because the post came from October, which seemed to have predicted this big news story regarding the FM radio signal from Ganymede. Walter Ashcroft, of course, now there is a lot. 2 days ago, I couldn't find anything from that time period of the posting. Not that it would be definitive unless it had some information as stating Walter Ashcroft, an astrophysicist, dies in a high-speed collision, and it was dated, around the time when that person states it happened. Couple of additions here. In relation to the post itself, there were apparently dropped links to mega files. So Mega, you are aware from Kim.com fame, although he doesn't run Mega.nz anymore, links to files that are encrypted. It's actually been bought out, by the way, by a Chinese company. So Mega.nz, the links were dropped there, and you needed an encryption key in order to decrypt them. Is it real? Well, people are stating that some people state on the forums they had the encryption key, or they're posting the encryption key. Of course, beyond that, not a lot is known. Remember, this is an archive post. The updated post, which is on 4chan, is a lot of people talking about after this news came out regarding this FM radio blast. They're saying, look back at this post. What's happening? So encryption keys, which had the alleged evidence inside them, were posted around. Apparently, they still exist, although some have been scrubbed. This is from the original archive around October here. This was published on the 23rd of October in reply to that post. Spooked and bumping, which basically means, replying so it goes further up, the thread stays alive. So the original poster, because you Google Walter Ashcroft and find a guy who died in a car wreck in September doing over 100 miles that hit a power pole. Too weird of a name to be a coincidence. Now here's the thing. That's what they were saying back then. I couldn't find any information about that, and there doesn't seem to be any information in the reply threads. So let's say that this was a government operation. I don't even know if that's remotely true. They would definitely have the power to scrub old news articles. We see it all the time. They can disappear a whole entire website's memory hold, and Google will strip all the data that even existed. Of course, you might be able to find it on other search engines. I looked on DuckDuckGo, a number of other search engines, and couldn't find this, which was being talked about back in October the 23rd. Of course, in a sophisticated troll, you could log in and reply to these posts yourself. But it is interesting. So here's the object in my mock-up I did, 920 feet in diameter. Actually, it's the calculation's wrong there, of course, because the diameter is right round it. But whatever. It's a donate-shaped object, as you can see here, with inside a sphere. Now, why is that interesting to me? Well, being the esoteric encyclopedia, there's a radio interview on Art Bell from probably 2004, I believe, maybe earlier, with a former very famous rocket scientist, by the way. Can't remember exactly his name, so I guess I'm not the encyclopedia. But Aldur or something like that, I can't remember, but you'll know who I'm talking about. There was a film based upon them that had Tobey Maguire in it. I believe it was Tobey. No, it was the other one. It was the person out of Donnie Darko in it, I believe. One of them. And it was about rockets, so you could track them down. David Aldur, I believe that's his name. And he was talking about how he was taken to, basically Area 51 and shown a spaceship and asked if he wanted to work with them and figuring out what it was. Now, he was famous for being a genius, okay, and that is, he was a documented genius, photographic memory, etc. The story actually came across to me, at least how he's speaking is true. To cut a long story short, he describes that the engine within the spaceship, which he briefly looked at and then said he didn't want to be part of that, but the engine inside the spaceship was a donut-shaped object, which had some kind of strange phenomenon, whereas if you touched the outside of the engine itself and took your hand away, there would be something where the heat wouldn't be in relation to the time you moved it away, and also your shadow, if you moved across it, I'm going from memory, this is about 16 years ago, that shadow would come across later or beforehand. So there was like some kind of time distortion, or I don't know if it's a time distortion or a distortion of light in it, and the way it was absorbed and reflected was delayed, at least from that testimony, which might or might not be true. So Guardian comes out here around about the same time, interestingly enough. This is what I mean. Is it a psyop? Because this can be achieved multiple different ways. For instance, someone related to astrophysics could be aware of this information and post a troll on 4chan. People start becoming interested in it. It could be purposely an orchestrated psyop. Whatever the case, radio signals are known. Well, this one is an anomaly. The truth is out there. Perhaps CIA releases thousands of UFO files. That was a few hours ago on January the 14th there, 2021. So there's this big push behind UFOs. Now, at the same time, with all the stuff happening in the United States regarding politics, it could be a case of an engineered distraction. How does that work? Well, people were researching, looking at stuff. You only have so much time in a day. You organize different distractions in order to distract them off into other areas. Or it could all be real. CIA unexpectedly releases all of its documents on UFOs. That's not true. Obviously, how would you know it was all of the documents from the CIA? Yeah, headline should be CIA releases some documents. It doesn't release all of anything if you don't know the quantity which they're holding on to. But headlines don't even have to make sense anymore. We know that. So these were some screen caps I did while I was researching late into the night the other day. Justin, Juno spacecraft orbiting Jupiter has discovered FM radio signal coming from the moon Ganymede. The find is the first time detection from the moon. Is it? Is it the first time depiction? Well, this is what's going around is, this is the first time. All these articles say the first time. By the way, these two are different sites here. For instance, here's another one. Mainstream press, the Juno spacecraft orbiting Jupiter has discovered a FM radio signal coming from the moon Ganymede. The first is a first-time depiction from the moon. But it's not really, okay? Jupiter radio emissions induced by Ganymede and consequences for radio detection of exoplanets. This is from 2018. Now, this is insane that it's coming from the moon of Ganymede, as far as I'm aware. It's saying that it's induced by the moon itself. Remember, the moons are smaller objects than the planet Jupiter, which is, I don't know if you, enormous probably is the word in comparison to Earth. You know, I should have been a scientist because although I'm not very good at mathematics and I have no ability to really remember things, I think that I would have had a good life. Okay. I think I would have had a good life. Right now I'd be in, I don't mean to take a road turn here, but I would have been in at a telescope looking through it, looking out at the stars. Could have had some, I don't know, some music in the background. You know, I'd probably have had a really good life. Of course, when you try to resist the machine, that's when your life is just obliterated. Maybe they'll make astronomy illegal one day, that, you know, looking through a telescope is the equivalent of, I don't know, hate speech. Or they'll say that the moon Mars you're not allowed to look at anymore because it's red. Anyway, there's some information. Before, if you think it's not possible, remember the reality of the world. The Allies, we defeated the Nazis, and this is true. Look it up. Look up these names. Gone on about Werner von Braun before, the head of the space program. There he is with Kennedy. He was an SS officer. Also, obviously, an SS high-level Nazi scientist. This person here, Hallstein, head of the EU Commission. This person, NATO's chief of staff in the 60s. He was a Nazi. There he is, right there, beside Adolf Hitler. Another Nazi ended up Secretary General of the United Nations, and I'm not even going to go into the Nazis that are behind all these corporations like, you know the names, okay? There's so many of them. Hugo Boss made the uniforms, the SS uniforms for the Nazis. A lot of these corporations, though, German pharmaceutical corporations and things like that, that became very big, were headed by Nazis. This is the world we live in. And here are the heroes. There's Ghislaine Maxwell, just behind Kamala Harris. All at the same parties. They all know each other. They're all at the same parties. So let's get into this YouTube thing. We're coming up to 42 minutes. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this YouTube thing. It is a bit depressing, that the world we live in. Here are some alternatives to browsers. Now, as you're probably aware, I use Brave. I also use the Tor browser. Now, the Tor browser is incredibly slow. For general surfing on the internet, of course, you're going to use Brave or something like that. But according to people, Brave is more on the lower tier list. Of course, Firefox said that every Trump supporter basically has a BD platform. So if you are a Donald Trump supporter, you might not want to use that platform. But here are some of the more of the high-tier privacy-orientated platforms, at least according to this chart here. And these are things like Pale Moon, which I have used before. It always seems to use so much RAM, it almost crashes my computer. Chromium is a good alternative to Google Chrome. And IceCat is another one. I'm just reading out some of them for you. Otter Browser is mid-tier, okay privacy. Just if you're thinking about a change. Let's get into this YouTube story here because we're up to 43 minutes. Time does fly when you're down the rabbit hole. Here's an academic paper called Evaluating the Scale, Growth and Origins of Right-Wing Echo Chambers on YouTube. Okay, a bunch of people there, including Amir. They're from Yale University. And also David M. Rothschild. As you can see there, this is taken, the screen capture, from ResearchGate. Here's the paper itself. As you can see there, Mr. David M. Rothschild and all kinds of academics evaluating the scale and growth and origins of the right-wing echo chamber on YouTube. If you want to find it, just basically type that into your search engine and it'll pull it up there on ResearchGate. So here's how they evaluate this long paper, which is something like 60, 70 pages long. I can't exactly remember. They had all these ways of whether you have, a gold star on your shoulder or not. So are you on the far right? What are you on this percentage scale? So then they came at the end of the paper, all their lists of people. Here are them on the far left. They've stated here. Remember, the paper's about far right. I'm not on the right or left. Actually, I was a classic liberal, or just a liberal, really. I used to listen to Democracy Now! Before everyone on... I haven't changed. They've changed. I don't believe in these fake left-right paradigms anyway, but they came up with all these charts. Here you are. Right, far right, they state. And then they name all these creators' channels. Now, what kind of ethical, in the realms of academia, do you think it's ethical if you're studying these people in order to put their names or their YouTube channels into something? Just talking from an academic sense. They never used to do stuff like that. They just talk about the statistics of it or the percentage of it. You know, and they make hardline predictions. Here's what I wanted to talk about, really, as we move to 45 minutes. Look who's on the list of far-right YouTube channels. I just picked out some out of random. Jamie Deluxe, who you're probably most familiar with, at least in the same realm of weird stuff that's going on that I cover. But look at some of these other names here. On the far right, you've got evolutionary psychologist there, Gad Saad. Happens to be Jewish and immigrated from Lebanon and is just a human being that is completely normal. It's normal opinions when he talks. Remember, this is coming out of the academic world. Gad Saad on the list. Who else is on the list? Well, Joe Rogan's on this list as well. Here is Joe Rogan clips. That's from his podcast, but his name's on the list as well as being on the far right. Brett Weinstein. Now you might ask, am I on here? No, I'm not on the list. Okay, I'm not on the list. I expected to be on the list when I searched through it, probably somewhere. But I guess I'm too insane, too much tinfoil. Though I do think that I am. I try to be fairly fair and balanced. I don't have any... there's lots of things that I'm left on. For instance, I believe in lots of stuff. I used to listen to Democracy Now! Used to donate to Greenpeace. I guess you could say that I'm on certain issues they would deem me as put me on the list for saying, because I don't believe that the main climate change hypothesis. I think the main driving force behind climate change is actually the sun. Because I'm insane, okay? I believe the sun is responsible for changes of the climate, or the majority of change on the climate, because I'm crazy. Because I can perform an experiment by putting my hand out the window and it gets warm from the sun. Like I say, I'm only saying that because they leave the sun out of all their climate models. I'm not saying that if you don't dump the entire all CO2 over everything, it's not going to change the climate. It's almost like you get to the point where there's no words anymore. What's the point of even talking? Does talking ever make a difference? I don't mean to be so negative, but I really do wonder, if it makes any difference anymore. Does it? How do you communicate to someone that's it's like communicating to an alien? If I said, and this is related to this, if I say, I believe that the sun, I'm speculating as to the point that the sun is the driving force behind climate changes and weather. And they call you a conspiracy theorist? Or they call you, I don't know, they call you some derogatory terms? I don't know. I don't really know what to say anymore. If they can ban the President of the United States, whether you like him or not, from every single platform, do you think it's going to be a problem for them to ban anybody else? They've got their lists up now. So Brett Weinstein, the biologist, he's completely liberal in my interpretation. He's just a liberal individual. He doesn't like Donald Trump. He criticizes Donald Trump all the time and voted for, I think he voted for Joe Biden. I don't know. Brett Weinstein. Brett Weinstein. Okay? Unbelievable, really. Sam Harris, another person on the far right here. Sam Harris. Sam Harris, they're stating, is on the far right. Of course, some names probably won't be much of a surprise there that you're reading. I'm only just had a scan. So on and so forth. Just a quick scan. Of course, it gets, probably a bit longer than that. I mean, the list is longer. That's how much I could fit on the screen, which would make it legible or readable to people if you wanted to pause it. You can always have a Google to find that. It's unbelievable, really. But guess who else is on the list? You'll never guess. I never really watched Tim Pool. I catch a clip here and there, now and then, but I don't watch. I try to stay away from everything. I mean, actually, I'm going to try to do some kind of like relaxation therapy to music, I think. And that's what I'll do. I think I need to get another job. Something that involves maybe, I don't know, really. It's actually going to work for the conservation department about 6 years ago. That's what I was looking into, driving around in the middle of the forest. I remember when I had a job where I'd walk through a forest, okay? This is really weird. Let me tell you something. Because nature's beautiful, obviously. There's a lot of majestic things about it. But we're made to be in nature, with nature, in the trees. And I used to do this job where I'd walk into the forest. It was my job to walk through a forest, okay? Thick, dense New Zealand forest. But there was a trail there, for normal people. And I would come into the forest, from outside the forest to come onto the track, and the oxygen would just like hit me like literally a wall. And I'd feel so awake while I was walking through it. It's so different than being out in the city with a tree here, tree there. If you've lived in the city before or a small town, there's trees by the side and the hills maybe be green. Then walking through a dense, thick, big forest with huge trees because the oxygen is so immense, it blows you away. Who else is on there? Tim Pool is on the list. Sorry if I cut out there and went on a diatribe before I came back to guess who's on the list. But you can read it on screen. Tim Pool is on the list. Now, I would say that there are some correct ones here, such as the Red Elephants. Okay, I don't watch their content. I watch things like, now and then, Unsafe Spaces. Or I watch videos on people fixing computers. Okay, or I watch videos on antiques. I have no real political... I don't watch people because they subscribe to my political philosophy. I think that... I don't really have a political philosophy. My idea of the world is that we should reduce suffering in other people if we can. If we have the ability. That means that you should adjust a crosswalk so it doesn't... That's easy for people. Or... if you've got the means, and I'm talking about the means to do it, you should try to, without hurting other people or infringing on their rights, try to create a society which is eases suffering. Having $2 million student loans doesn't ease suffering, okay? And you might say, well, that's a socialist that says, you should reduce student loans. No, it's actually a market. It's the free market where you can have education at cost, right? So the problem is the universities have set up a conspiracy in order to make you not be able to set up a university that costs extreme amounts of money to do that. And this is their firewall against competition. You could provide educational materials to people for maybe $50, for maybe $100 for your entire degree. That isn't socialism. That's a real free market, okay? Digital materials. How much did you get a degree? I don't know, $300. If your degree costs $300, okay, I think that's a reasonable price. If it costs $100,000 to learn how to become a doctor, or $200,000, what is that? What is that? Sorry, I'm just a bit tired. I've only been back a few... What? Is this my second or first week back? When did I come back? The 5th. This is my second week back, I think. We lost track of time again. But you can see there Mr. Tim Pool as well as Tim Casts on the far right. Now, a number of these names you probably agree with, but Tim Pool, is he really on the far right? This is their lists they're making. Look at it. Making lists of people. Because believe it or not, this list on the right is the bad list. They have set up a paper where they're describing a good list of people and a bad list. And these are on the bad list. Whatever the case is, in the meantime though, that's pretty much it really. We're up to 56 minutes, so I'll call it there. Thank you all for your support. Hope you got something out of this that you don't really see often. Try to dig a little bit deeper. Of course, I'm on numerous amounts of platforms, as you know. This is backed up, although if it's been censored, you probably found the link there on Rumble, 3Speak, etc. In the meantime, thank you all for your kind support. Stay safe. I'll be back with another video day after tomorrow. Stay safe, take care of yourselves. I'll see you all later.